Three, two, one. You ready? You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, theys, and gays. This is the Real Pineapple. This is your humble host, Hunter, here. Happy Black History Month. Hope you're all having a great month so far. I am horribly excited because I watched this film called Ice Merchants, which is on the New Yorker's YouTube page, where you can view the film for free right now. I have the director of the film, the animator of the film. He did the score. He did everything basically. It's kind of amazing, all the things, once you just start taking a little deep dive into what he did. But I've got I'm gonna butcher it. It's João. João?
João.
João.
Yeah, it's impossible to pronounce. Don't worry.
João Gonzalez. João, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing really well. It's a Monday, so getting.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's really nice to be here.
Thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it. So I'm just gonna kind of jump in here. So I watched your film last week, and I actually went back and watched it a couple times, and then I went through and I listened to the score. All due respect, I think the score was like transcendent. Like, the score really caught me off guard in the best way. I was like, wow. And then I was really curious. I'm like, I wonder what up and coming director, what up and coming person did the score. I'm like, it's you. You did the score. And so I guess my first question just out the gate is, this truly feels like a labor of love. And after watching it a couple times, I can definitely say that the Oscar nomination that you got for Best Short Film is well deserved. So when you started on this journey, was it a conscious decision to go, I'm going to animate this, I'm going to write it, I'm going to was it a conscious decision, or did it kind of just evolve into you wearing all those hats?
Mm-hmm. No, it started from the beginning. So my artistic background is actually music. I started playing the piano very young, when I was 4 years old. My father is a pianist as well. And I spent a big time in my life, until I got to college, without knowing what I wanted to do in my life. But I always had that music background. So I actually went to study arts because I failed my math exam that would put me into engineering school. So I actually got into my second option, which was multimedia arts at that time.
Okay.
And that's where I went for my BA in Portugal. And that's where I found out that I really like animation. And when I got into that course and got into contact with arts, I restarted to play the piano because I started very young. But when I was 13, as most kids, I stopped playing because I wanted to be a sports person.
Of course.
But so it was always very natural for me to combine music with my work in animation and directing. Also, I'm not very good at writing. I don't know how to write dialogues. So for me, it was always more natural for me to conduct a film with music and sound rather than actual words.
Okay.
In the case of this film was born as my graduation film from Royal College of Art. And so I was already starting working on all the areas of the film. I normally start you were asking about the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I sometimes start composing the soundtrack even before actually making visual tests for the film, because music is inspiration. And if I have an idea of I want the film to sound like, I start to compose something. And when I have something more established, that gives me ideas for the narrative and for the visuals. And then I'm drawing something that gives me ideas for the music. So my creative process is always juggling between all of those areas until something I hope organic starts to be created. I don't like to do the film and then I stamp a music. They are always born very organically, side by side. And I don't know if you saw the album is on Spotify, and I also added some drafts from previous versions. How it sounded at the beginning and how it was changing slowly every passing week. So yeah, for me, it was always, I love doing it. I love animation. I do the art direction, animation director as well. I'm one of the two animators for this film. There's another animator in this film, Ala Nuno. She's an amazing animator. And I also do the music. For me, it's very important to have all these areas combining, so something cohesive be created.
So when you set out on this, when you set out on this journey, God, I don't think how I want to phrase this. Do you make a conscious decision to go, we're staying around the 15-minute mark, like regardless, or is there a part of you that was like maybe we could turn this into multiple shorts, into maybe a feature film? Like how do you make that decision to go, no, it needs to be a short film and it needs to be told in this fashion?
So actually, initially the film was 10 minutes. But the more when I actually started to animate and everything, I kept adding a bit more shots, and I kept making them slightly longer. What happened is I think like the film could be told in 10 minutes, but I realized that in a film that needs to create some sort of impact and relationship with the characters, it also needed some time to breathe, and so we can see like the father and son interacting, so we can actually understand their connection and care about them. So the film actually got those 4 extra minutes, just because I felt like it needed to be. I don't think this film would work well as a feature film. I mean, at least not in this format. It would have to be completely different. And I never consider as well like making shorter episodes. At least in my view, I think the film is exactly how long it's exactly as big as it should be. And I think that's one of the challenges as a director is to find the perfect not only medium, because it could also be live action. I don't put aside the hypothesis of one day doing live action, but finding the best medium to tell your story, and also the best length possible. So I don't want to I don't ever want to do like a feature film for the sake of doing a feature film, because a lot of people, I need to do a feature film to be an established director. For me, it's very simple. If I ever have an idea that I feel needs to be exploited longer, I'll try and fight to do a feature film. But if I keep making short films for the rest of my life, I'm also happy with it.
Okay, and I'm actually really happy you brought that up, because that leads right to my next question is, as a big film nerd, I love animation. I think the medium in itself is it's very, there's this condescension to the medium that I think is completely unfair. And when you think about all of the incredible animated films that come out, whether they're feature film or short, that's a conversation that needs to change, especially when it comes to the Academy. Is that something? Let's say you win, and I hope you do. I truly hope you do. But is that? Are you feeling that pressure, even just being nominated? Of oh man, I'm engaging in this dialogue, whether I'm consciously doing it or not, because of the medium I'm picked, or like, is there pressure on that front?
I mean, I'm trying to don't think as much as possible about it, but of course, there's like I feel like some pressure to, especially in Portuguese media. I feel like some pressure because it was the first Portuguese film to ever be nominated for an Oscar. Yeah. So there's a big, but I just want to keep doing my own thing. I hope my life doesn't change drastically actually after this. I'm just really happy doing films, and if I can keep sustaining myself just doing films, I'll be happy. And as I said, yeah, I agree with you. That's like a misconception that animation is just for kids. I'm particularly more interested in films not directed to kids, although they can be universal. I think as mentions, although not being a kids film is like universal for everyone.
Yeah.
And one thing that right now the short film format allows is that when you do something, it doesn't have to be necessarily financially viable. So you have a lot of creative freedom that maybe you wouldn't have on a feature film. I think I would only do a feature film one day if I actually have that full freedom that I currently have in the animated short film form. But I just hope I can. This helps me to sustain myself and keep doing films for the rest of my life, and combining that with music, because it's the thing that makes me the happiest.
I love that. When you talk about the freedom of short film, I think that's a really interesting conversation, because we hear about these films that get, even those A24 films that are, $20 million budgets. You do hear about, oh, well, I was able to get this, but I had to sacrifice this, or and honestly, the more I was watching this, I was getting those A24 neon vibes as I was watching it. Like, it was something that I've already been like, people, like, this is on YouTube, go watch this right now. As far as doing a feature film, I know you said that you're happy with the medium you're in. Is there has there been musically anything that maybe you've conducted or produced that you go, oh, this would lend itself well to a feature film? Like, is that,
Hmm.
I know you talked about how you like the medium you're in, but is that an avenue you're more open to exploring after seeing how well this came together? Or
Sorry, the music part, like I didn't
yeah,
like if I would compose something for a future.
exactly.
Ah,
Yeah,
uh-huh.
yeah.
I don't know. Actually, it's I only compose in my life. I only compose for my films. I never composed anything before. Actually,
Really?
my, yeah. This
Wow.
was my first time composing actually for more than one instrument at a time because my other two films were just for. First was just piano solo, the one that I played by myself, and
Mhm.
second one was for a cello. But I needed like supposedly six cellos, so I recorded everything on one cello with Miguel Teixeira, and then I overlaid like the layers, so it sounded like six cellos playing different things. But it was just one instrument.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is the first time that actually were able to get the budget to actually get a small ensemble orchestra, and so yeah, I'm still a big newbie. I don't know yet, but I actually one of the things that I want to try this year is to now get like take some time for myself and experience just with music and see what can come out of it. I have a really interesting invitation from Portuguese Film Festival happening this summer, which is to do a live performance of me accompanying different, I think, silent films. And I want to go a bit experimental with electronics and synthesizers and see what comes out. So there will
Okay.
be like a fun challenge for me, I think. But
I
yeah,
love that.
I'm starting my life as a composer right now.
I love that. Okay. So getting back to the music portion, because I just as a music nerd, I'm curious. When you sat down to go, all right, I'm doing the score, we're doing this movie, we're doing the short film, we're doing this. What inspirations were you drawing? Was there anything like short film wise, feature film wise, that was inspiring the story, that was inspiring the score, or inspiring other elements of the short? Or
In terms of inspirations, I always I normally don't use a lot of. I mean, I try to stay away from inspirations in the way that, for example, like some people are interested about like how my bedroom looks like because maybe it has a lot of like drawings and everything. And like my bedroom is the most boring thing possible. It's just like a blank wall with nothing. All my films are born out of an image that came from my subconscious in this. Do you know those images when you're just about to fall asleep and out of nowhere in just an amazing place, but then
yes.
you think about it, you feel like things in your body, but then you think about it, it disappears forever. Those are always like my starting points for the film. Because I know that if I situate a film in a scenario like that, I already have unconsciously a big connection to it because it resonated with me for some reason. And my challenge is always to find a way of connecting using those surrealistic and bizarre scenarios and use them as a metaphor to talk about something that concerns me or that I want to talk about. In this case, the film is about loss, but it's fun because for me, it also a bit therapeutical because although there can be my films can be personal and touch personal topics because there's such evident barrier between my reality and that reality. I feel more comfortable about talking about these topics because it's never directly portraying me. It's like
Okay.
already almost having a pseudonym in a way. But I kind of forgot what the question was. But I'm sorry, I got a bit
No, no,
lost
no.
now.
You're good. You're good. Speaking of
Talking.
speaking of the relationships, the relationship between the dad and the son in this,
Oh,
um,
sorry. No, I just remember. Yeah, the inspirations.
yeah,
So yeah, I do. I always try to get as much as I can from the inside. But of course, like everything you have from the inside is like unconsciously connected with something that you saw before. Of course, I know one soundtrack that definitely like influenced me, uh, which was Under the Skin. I don't know if you watched it.
yes, 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 yes.
Like especially with the glissandos, like it's a. I really
Yeah.
like to compose with like shape, pitch shifting slowly, like notes up and down, and that's. I mean, although I didn't do it consciously, I now can say it probably came from that as well.
Okay.
And in terms of story structure, one short film that changed my life was called Le Maison Petit Coups. I think he won the Oscar in 2007, and it's the short film that made me understand how much you can actually pack in an animation short film and also portray a lot of emotions. And Yeah, that was a good, very good inspiration for me. But aesthetically speaking, it's just how I like to draw and I always like to illustrate. Uh, for some time, I wanted to be an architect, so there's always a big love for perspective and buildings and scenario. And I
Okay.
like strong dark shadows, and I like characters with weird proportions. So
I
that's
was
it.
gonna I was gonna ask you about that because I love the way that the dad feels so imposing versus the son, but it also makes
Yeah.
me think of when I was a kid how most adults seem like that to me. They seem
Yeah.
like these giants that you look up to. And
Yes.
without spoiling anything, you reference the mother in a way that I thought was very clever and very
Mhm.
sweet, and yet heartbreaking at the same time. And it's one of those things that as I was watching, I went, oh, okay. But I think what I like about you choosing this medium is that you're almost forced to trust your audience because you don't
Mhm.
have the vocalization as your tool to kind of get you out of
Mhm.
these potential corners. But the way you present everything, I thought was so well handled, and yet I think there's a lot of rewatchability in the short,
Thank
just off of the off of the aforementioned score and everything. I know you talked about your subconscious and seeing certain things. Was there a certain shot in the short that came to you first, or something that you went, this has to be on there that you kind of saw?
you. The first shot that came were actually like the house. Yeah, the first image was the tiny house attached to a cliff. So when I start to make the film, even before knowing what narrative would be exactly, I drew the house in several positions from different angles. I actually one thing that I do, although I don't use 3D animation, I model the film's movie set in 3D so that when I'm still trying to figure out the story, I can open the file and I can just like navigate inside. It's
Mhm.
like doing location scouting, but because my film's locations don't exist in real life, that's my only way of doing it.
Okay.
And because, as I said, when I start the film, I know where it's going to take place. I know what emotion I want to portray and the general topic. But everything that happens in the film, like in terms of narrative, is something that I found along the way. So I have that house. I thought of the characters that could inhabit there. I start to ask questions. How would they survive in those conditions? And I had the idea of oh, it's cold. Maybe they sell the ice. How do they get down there? Oh, it would be cool if they could parachute. And the hat situation is fun because I actually designed the characters wearing hats even before I knew that they actually would be really important for the film. And the story is quite funny because my characters initially wore hats just because I started to do animation quite recently by that time, and I wasn't comfortable drawing hair on characters yet.
Okay.
So, and that's the thing. I already have two characters that wear hats and they jump every day with a parachute. Oh, maybe if they do the every, I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, if you do every day, maybe with the wind they lose their heads, and so it's. I never know exactly what film is going to be about, but the more I dive into the film's reality from my subconscious, and the more I live there in a way, the more ideas I have for the films, and I get to figure out the story.
All right, two more quick questions for you. Because you are wearing so many hats, as we talked about earlier, is that more of a hindrance when it comes to making a film, or is that more of a positive for you? Because I would imagine that because you're working on the animation, you're doing the score, you're directing it, because all those things are so intertwined that, oh, if you get an idea for over here, it could enhance here, but then it could enhance here
Yeah.
as well. And it could kind of work in this perfect circle. But then I think about the contrast of, oh, if you have writer's block or you're feeling stumped,
Mhm.
that it could kind of derail the machine. Did you find yourself more on the positive side of that, or more of the of kind of struggling at points?
I think the first one. Yeah, I think especially for writer's block, it's really freeing for me to be able to juggle between like areas. Because if I'm stuck with the narrative, maybe I'll just okay, I'm done with this. I'm just going to the piano to play for a bit, and maybe while I'm playing, that will spot me an idea for the narrative. So I think being able to have control over those different areas I'll not only makes me more sane, like mentally, because I'm never too tired about like, oh, I'm tired of animating. What am I going to do now? I'll just jump on the piano, and then therapeutically will help me find solutions for the animation that I didn't have before. So I think it's more, yeah, it's I think having control on those different categories for me personally really helps me with writer's block and also to keep me sane.
All right. And last question I'm just going to throw out here for you. Got the Oscars coming up here. When audiences watch this short, what do you want? Like, is there something that you want your audience to take away from this? Or is there
Mhm.
something that you like? How do you want your audience? Like, what do you want your audience, if you have to give them one thing they have to take away? What do you want the audience to take away after they watch it?
I'm actually it's there's two things that I really I mean the first one in my films the thing that I want the most is that while people are watching the film they actually feel immersed in there as much as possible because I spent such a long time in pre-production actually figuring out the scenario and its rules and the colors and everything. If I can at least put like the audience like immersed into the film and in a way almost feeling like they're there, that's already mission accomplished for me. On a more like message level, I think the what we can take from this film is like how those those small interactions that we have with our closed ones every day, those silly rituals sometimes, like in this case the thing with the hat. Although we don't pay a lot of attention to them and almost maybe sometimes almost take it for granted because we do it every day. Like with each passing day, they keep a foundation between human relationships that makes it grow stronger every day, like subtly. And in the end, there's like a physical representation of that foundation of they have. So yeah, I think there's something that I want people to take is like that importance of daily rituals and small things in life that we have with our close ones. I think.
Okay, I love that. Thank you so much, so
No,
much
thank you
for
so much for it.
making the time. Before I let you go, if you wouldn't mind letting people know about the film, where they can find it, where they can
Mm,
find you on social media.
sure. Um, so on US and Canada, the film is available on the New Yorker platform and on YouTube, as you said. And also now, because ahead of the Oscar ceremony, the film is actually playing in more than 350 cinemas spread all over Canada and the US. So there's plenty of places to see the film on a big room, which I think really enhances the film, especially in terms of sound design. Like I work with Ed Rosso, he's an amazing sound designer, and I guarantee if you see the film on a big screen with 5.1 like sound, it's a completely different experience. So I really advise that. And also for people in the industry, the film is also available worldwide in a platform called Animation Showcase, where people just have to submit a form and explain why they are connected with the industry. And they will get access to not only my film, but all of the shortlisted and nominated films like online.
Oh wow, okay. Um, are you on Twitter, Instagram, any of that?
Oh, I think Instagram is the best platform to find me. Is underscore João underscore Gonzalez. That's my tag.
Perfect. I'll be following you then. Zhao, thank you so much, sir, again for making the time. Good
Oh
luck.
no, my pleasure.
Good luck. Like I said, fingers crossed. I hope you win.
Thank you so much, Joshua. You're so nice. Thank you so much for having me. Oh,
E-
and
e-
also, I don't know if you saw it, but I also have on YouTube two videos of the making of the film. They may
oh, I
interest you.
didn't see
They
that.
they explain like detail how I did the soundtrack and also the conceptualization of the film. I can
Oh,
send them if you want.
yeah, please email those to me because I'd love to watch those.
Sure, sure,
But
sure.
yeah,
No
I'll
problem.
definitely tag you in this once the review's up. But again, thank you so much for making the time, and hey, good
No.
luck.
Thank you so much, Joshua.
Take care.
Have a good day.
You too.